You close your eyes, the room is dark, the bed is comfortable, everything is quiet, and then it starts. A conversation you had 3 years ago suddenly replays in your head. You wonder if you said the wrong thing. Then your brain jumps to tomorrow's meeting, then to a random memory from middle school, then to a question like, why do we dream anyway? And before you know it, 2 hours have passed and you're still wide awake, staring at the ceiling, your mind running at full speed while the rest of the world is fast asleep. If this sounds familiar, you are not alone, and more importantly, you are not broken. In fact, the people who experience this the most, the ones whose brains simply refuse to shut down at night, tend to share a set of remarkable psychological traits that most people never notice in themselves. Science has started to pay attention to this pattern, and what researchers have found is both surprising and deeply validating. This is not about insomnia as a medical condition. This is about a specific type of person, someone whose inner world is so rich, so active, and so layered that even the natural transition into sleep becomes an event of its own. If you are one of these people, this video might explain more about you than you ever expected. The first thing to understand is that overthinking at night is not a sign of weakness or anxiety disorder by default. Yes, it can be linked to stress, but in many cases, it is simply the signature of a mind that processes the world more deeply than average. Psychologists call this trait high cognitive engagement, the tendency to analyze, reflect, and connect dots even when there is no immediate need to do so. People with high cognitive engagement don't just experience life, they observe it, question it, replay it, and try to make sense of it. And nighttime, when all external distractions disappear, is when this process goes into overdrive. So what does it actually mean about you if you are someone who lies awake thinking every night? The first hidden trait is that you are an exceptionally deep processor of emotions. While many people experience something and move on, you tend to sit with feelings for much longer. Not because you are weak, but because your brain is wired to extract meaning from experience. When something happens during the day, a comment someone made, a decision you had to take, a moment that felt off, your mind doesn't file it away immediately. It keeps it open, like a tab in a browser that never quite closes. At night, when the noise of the day fades, your brain returns to those open tabs and starts working through them. Research in psychology suggests that people who do this tend to have higher levels of emotional intelligence. They are more attuned to the feelings of others, more aware of the emotional undercurrents in social situations, and more capable of empathy. The very thing that keeps them up at night is the same thing that makes them deeply understanding human beings. The second trait is a powerful and often underestimated imagination. People who overthink at night are rarely thinking about nothing. They are building scenarios, imagining conversations, creating futures that may or may not happen. This is not random brain noise. This is creative processing. The brain uses the period before sleep, what scientists call the hypnagogic state, as a kind of sandbox where ideas connect freely, without the rigid logic of waking consciousness. Many writers, artists, inventors, and problem solvers throughout history have reported that their best ideas came to them just before sleep. Thomas Edison famously tried to capture this state intentionally. Your mind wandering through possibilities before you sleep is not a malfunction. It is a feature. The challenge is learning to work with it rather than against it. The third trait is a deep need for resolution. One of the main reasons overthinkers can't fall asleep easily is that they struggle to leave things unfinished in their minds. If a conversation ended awkwardly, if a problem wasn't solved, if a decision is still pending, the brain won't let it go until it finds some form of closure, even an imaginary one. This is connected to what psychologists call the Zeigarnik effect, the well-documented tendency for the human mind to remember and fixate on incomplete tasks far more than completed ones. Overthinkers experience this effect more intensely than most. Their brains are constantly scanning for loose ends and trying to tie them up before allowing rest. This makes them incredibly thorough and reliable in real life. They are the people who follow through, who remember details others forget, who make sure nothing falls through the cracks. The fourth trait is a highly developed sense of self-awareness. To think deeply before sleep, you have to spend a lot of time inside your own head. And over time, this builds an unusually clear picture of who you are, what you want, and what bothers you. Overthinkers tend to know themselves well, sometimes painfully well. They notice their own contradictions. They question their own motives. They hold themselves to high standards and feel genuine discomfort when they fall short. This level of self-reflection can be exhausting, but it also drives tremendous personal growth. Studies on self-awareness consistently show that people who reflect deeply on their own behavior are better at adjusting it, learning from mistakes, and building meaningful relationships. The midnight thinker who agonizes over whether they handled a situation correctly is usually the person who handles it better next time. The fifth trait is a heightened sensitivity to the world around them. People who overthink at night often describe feeling things more intensely than others, not just emotions, but sensory experiences, social atmospheres, the subtle energy of a room. This is not imagination. Research into the trait known as high sensitivity, studied extensively by psychologist Elaine Aron, shows that roughly 15 to 20% of the population has a nervous system that processes stimuli more deeply than average. These individuals pick up on details others miss, feel more affected by beauty, injustice, noise, and other people's moods, and need more time to process intense experiences. For highly sensitive people, the day is full of input that the brain has not yet fully sorted through by the time night arrives. Sleep doesn't come easily because the sorting process is still running. The sixth trait is a strong inner moral compass. A surprising number of nighttime overthinking sessions are not really about logistics or social anxiety. They are about ethics. Did I do the right thing? Could I have been kinder? Did my actions match my values? People who wrestle with these questions at night tend to have a strong and sincere commitment to being good, not in a performative way, but in a genuine, internalized way. They care about integrity. They care about fairness. They lose sleep, sometimes literally over the question of whether they lived up to their own standards. This is one of the most admirable hidden traits of the nighttime thinker, even if it never feels that way when you are lying there at 2 in the morning replaying an argument from a week ago. The seventh trait is a remarkable capacity for long-term thinking. While most people focus on the immediate present, chronic overthinkers are often mentally living in the future, mapping out consequences, anticipating problems, preparing for scenarios that haven't happened yet. This can feel like anxiety, and sometimes it is. But it is also a cognitive gift. The ability to think beyond the present moment, to consider how today's decisions will affect tomorrow's reality, is the foundation of strategic thinking, good planning, and wise decision-making. Many of the most successful people in history were notorious overthinkers. The restlessness that keeps them awake is the same engine that drives them to prepare more, think harder, and see further than those around them. Now, knowing all of this doesn't automatically make it easier to fall asleep, but it changes the relationship you have with your own mind. Instead of seeing your nighttime thoughts as a problem to fix, you can start to see them as evidence of a mind that is genuinely engaged with life. The goal is not to silence that mind, it is to give it a better outlet. What tends to help people like you is not forcing sleep, but giving the brain a soft landing place. Writing down thoughts before bed, not to solve them, but simply to externalize them, signals to the brain that the information has been recorded and does not need to be held in active memory. Setting a specific worry time earlier in the evening, a dedicated 15 minutes to think through concerns, can also reduce the brain's need to do this work at midnight. And perhaps most importantly, accepting that your mind works this way, rather than fighting it, tends to reduce the anxiety around sleeplessness, which itself often makes falling asleep easier. You are not a broken sleeper. You are a deep thinker in a world that rarely gives deep thinkers enough credit for the invisible work their minds do every single day. The thoughts that visit you at night are not your enemies. They are part of what makes you perceptive, creative, conscientious, and real. And if you made it to the end of this video, lying in bed with your phone, your mind quietly agreeing with everything you just heard, well, that probably tells you everything you need to know about yourself.